everybody. As I, Nick, Pennsylvania, here as I am always with my good friend Brendan Bond. Good evening, Brendan.
Good evening, Nick. It's
And
been a long, it's been a
also
long week. It's been a long week.
giggling with us here is my wife Emily, who is all a rage right now. She's been running experiments because earlier this
I
week,
love.
just a few days ago, Bond shared with me a video that is admittedly spooky
Mm-hmm.
looking, and I went to as we were cleaning up after dinner. I said, I want you to look at this video Brendan sent. Tell me it's spooky looking, right? And she's like, I don't know.
Ah,
I'd be more, you said you'd be more creeped out if it were older technology.
I thought that the ring stamp just made it not so creepy.
So
that was
we'll talk about
yeah.
what this is, but she was getting fired up. She was running experiments. I think I saw a test tube. I'm not sure, but
A Bunsen burner, maybe a
Bunsen-
graduated
absolutely.
cylinder if we're lucky.
Yes, all of this stuff was going on.
Yeah, I love
But
it.
no, it is kind of a spooky video that you shared with me. Then you told me that there are multiple videos. You got
Yes.
some backstory.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about this, but Em was actually able to recreate the video. And
I'm so excited for this.
she's
So,
and she told me like 8 different times, damning evidence.
no, that's fantastic because I mean that's kind of what I was kind of hoping to have with this conversation, because we've been looking for an excuse for a while now to have a episode where we kind of talk about just kind of the role of video evidence in the paranormal, because there is so much of it out there. We thought it would be fun to focus an episode on it, and it didn't take long for someone to send something in for us to go over.
And I'll say too, I know we have so much more video of everything now that everybody constantly has a video and photo taking device in their pocket on their person all times.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like back in the day where you have to run into the house and grab the camcorder.
Right.
So there's that, and I hadn't even thought about it, but we have the Ring doorbell thing. A lot of
folks do. Yeah.
And that's been catching like so many. I know we spend many mornings watching car wrecks.
Oh yeah.
We're normal, well-adjusted people.
Yeah.
I thought you meant on our actual Ring doorbell.
No. I think on YouTube that are captured by Ring doorbell.
Right. No, and it's funny because because we have this prevalence of just more cameras out there, and this is something we've been seeing over the last 25 years. This isn't like a new thing necessarily, but it's becoming more and more ubiquitous.
Right.
And I think a lot of folks, if you went back 30 years and told people how many video cameras would be out there and how prevalent this technology would be, especially at a relatively high quality, I think paranormal investigators would be like, oh, we're going to get some evidence coming out here relatively soon that is irrefutable,
Yeah. And I'm going to say right now, I know I usually don't jump to such quick conclusions, but I don't think the quality of video that has been captured that is really challenging to have a completely natural explanation for has increased in any way.
Mhm.
I would say that. Would you agree with that statement? Or
I'm not sure. Obviously,
Well, I think
film is
Mhm.
is going to be the highest quality.
Right. Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think you're right, Em. The thing I want to add is that we have not seen video convince people more than it would have previously. So
Right.
Right.
the conclusion of this whole episode for me is probably going to be, I don't think video exists that is going to convince people. If it's something if you're going to be convinced by things, you probably already are. If you haven't been convinced by certain things yet, then I don't know what it's going to take.
Right. Because again, just the number of cameras that are out there and the Ring doorbell cameras are remarkably sharp images.
They really are. Yeah.
Even in low light situations, the scale, just the size of the technology has gone down. You would figure that if video evidence would present itself, if it suggests anything, it suggests that if these things are real, they are a lot more rare
Mhm.
than some people would believe.
Right. Right. And that kind of brings us into these videos. I know that we are obviously on a podcast. Though we do post our podcasts on YouTube, we don't do video necessarily for them. And this is a primarily audio medium, so we know that this is not the best experience for listeners out there. But we are going to have these videos available. Nick can probably embed them into the show and everything when it goes on YouTube.
I can do
And
that.
yeah, and we'll have these available also on our Instagram. I try and keep up on pretty well, but so we'll have the 3 videos. I do have permission to share them for you all to review and draw your own conclusions from. So let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to now show Nick and Emily all 3 of these videos back to back.
Yeah, and again, we've only seen one of these 3. I saw it a couple days ago. Em saw it a couple hours ago.
Like 1 hour.
1 hour
A
ago.
hour ago.
Right. A couple
Okay.
half hours ago.
A
And
couple
so,
half hours. Okay, so let me go
so
ahead.
we're going to be seeing this in real time.
Yep.
Yes, I think this is one we saw, but it's definitely sharper here.
Yeah.
And if you hear a cat, that is one of our annoying cats. Now, the first time I saw it, I said it looked spooky. I said I didn't think it looked like, the classic dust thing or insect, which you said as well. And I say that because there's just not, I would expect to see more dust. There's like those little,
Right.
This is a pretty wide shot. I would expect to see a couple things. And what was your initial impression other than disappointment in me?
I was very surprised that you thought it was spooky.
Okay, well let me show you the other 2, and I'll give you some context, and you can reevaluate maybe if you think Nick is jumping to conclusions. Yeah, because the first one you saw was from 2 a.m. This one is from 5:20 in the morning.
Oh, okay. So that to me, I've got a theory. What are you gonna say? Or should we wait till we're done with
Yeah,
this?
wait till we get so it says 3 times. Notice how it changes shape there at the end, and then stays there,
Play it one more time.
and see it
Okay.
stays right there,
Oh,
and then it slowly fades away. Now it's totally gone.
You think it's like a moisture thing?
Okay, let me show you the third one.
What are you gonna say,
I
Em?
still
Oh, yeah, I
have
forgot.
my own theory in my brain.
Okay.
Okay, I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
It's the same theory. So.
Okay. Let's see if this one changes. This is a daylight one.
Oh.
This is from 10 in the morning. It starts right there, moves towards the stairs, stops, and fades away. Looks like through the wall. Okay, so now that you have seen the 3 videos, so before you give us your theory, I want to explain kind of what we're seeing for those who haven't watched the videos yet.
Sounds good.
And again, they'll be up on our Instagram whenever you all are hearing this. Please do not watch it while you're driving. Do so where it is safe. So there's 3 videos, 2 of which are nighttime, one at 2 in the morning, one about 5 in the morning, then a daylight one around 10 a.m. In the first video, there appears to be some sort of a vaporous or transparent thing that moves from bottom center of the camera off to the right. In the second video, you have what appears to be a similar form that is in some ways kind of oblong, but it does kind of change shape as it moves. It moves from right to left over towards the stairs, and this is in a basement. And then the third one, which is the daylight one, has a some kind of anomaly start near the center of the frame, move off to the stairs on the left, pause, and then slowly dissipate. So, and before I talk about what Nick kind of just mentioned, which is like I'd say 99% of the time when I see videos like this, it's one of 3. I think it's one of 3 things. It's either dust, an insect, or some sort of light refraction, whether that's a lens flare or something reflective. And we'll get into kind of all 3 of those, but I want to hear your hot take because it sounds like you're ready to go on this. So,
Well, I will say that the first thing I thought was sort of refraction. But as I watched it further and paid attention to the orientation of the stairs,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is some sort of light source coming from behind the camera.
Okay, so this is on a wall.
You've been in
Yeah.
this house before?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so when you exit the stairs, do you
Mm-hmm.
run smack dab into the wall?
The walls, yeah. So if you come down those stairs that are on the left, the wall is in front of you, and you turn left into the basement area.
Okay. How far do you want me to go into my theory?
I want you to we have all
all the
night.
way.
Okay,
I would
so I still think that it could be from like relatively behind because obviously the camera isn't seeing the wall. So if somebody
correct. And these are
was up
wide
against
angle.
the wall.
Yeah, so and
Yeah.
these are wide angle cameras. You're right. These are very, very wide
So
angle cameras.
is there any way to know if the video itself was altered in length?
No, these are like the clips that they sent over to me. So a little bit of background was this. It's good that you're asking about this because I think refraction is a good thing to talk about here because this is one of the first things I thought about too. And in me and you both being photographers, that's kind of where that's I think a natural place to go. They've had these Ring cameras up for, I believe my aunt said, about a year and a half, 2 years, maybe. These do not get tripped very often. And they've never had these kind of anomalies show up. And these all showed up. One was on the 23rd, the other was on the 28th, and the other was on the 27th.
This is February 2025.
Yes, February 2025.
Okay.
Thank you. So it isn't like this is happening consistently. And so it isn't like they're tripping all the time. So I wanted to kind of give that context as well. And they were home for both the nighttime ones. They were upstairs sleeping, and the 10 o'clock one, they were actually at mass that day. They weren't in the house. There are no animals in the house or anything like that. So this is a little bit of context before you go.
And obviously very trustworthy people being
Yes, they're yes, yeah, of all the people that would be pulling my leg on something like this, I trust the credibility of this 100%. Correct.
But there's no okay, well, that does kind of debunk my theory.
Although you should maybe go into what you were thinking.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important for us to go into because I have thoughts on the lens on like the refraction side as well of why
And I
think
still maintain because one of the things I would say is that, and I thought of, is that in the front of the camera, straight ahead, there's a glass block window.
Yes.
And there is a door with a window in it too. I'm assuming the house is built into a bank.
Yes.
It'd probably be a silly place to have a door and window. And that I don't know if that faces a road or anything.
So you're picking, yeah. So that's something I was thinking of as well. So they live down in Pittsburgh.
I'll give it back to Em to go into some of what she
So let me go as deep as you want because I have some thoughts on this as well as far as the refraction theory.
Knowing about the Ring doorbell itself, my Ring doorbell triggers way before a human being is ever visible.
Right.
So my thought was that really if somebody is walking down the stairs, say, you trigger, obviously they would be in sight. But then if you smush up against the wall and you play some funny business, then you can just edit the person coming down the stairs out.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, no, you're absolutely right. I agree.
So then the reason I also assumed that was because the Ring doorbell only allows you to record a minimum of 50 seconds. And so obviously I'm talking about doorbells. I'm not sure if other Ring cameras are different.
Yeah.
But so the fact that it's 20 some seconds, that's less.
Yeah.
Now,
no, that is a good point. I didn't ask if I assume they just exported the links from their phone. But I could ask them if they did clip them for length. I don't think they did because if they would have, they could have cut 20 seconds out of each one of them.
Right.
You know? We said the same exact thing.
Yeah, we figured out why it may be shortened. Basically, if it's no longer detecting motion, it just stops recording.
Oh, okay. See?
So something triggered it. It recorded for that period of time, and then it's not triggered anymore.
Right.
So that would explain that.
Right.
But the triggering part, like
why is it triggering? Yeah.
Right. Since mine seems to be triggered by even the motion of the door, or like behind the fact,
Well,
like,
we have rain change too, that when the wind sometimes will
yeah.
trigger.
Right.
I mean, from behind it, in like
Hmm.
not actually in front of the door
Right.
motion. I thought maybe even upstairs. If something's walking around upstairs, could it be triggered by somebody stepping
Right.
of that area?
Right. No, and I think that's a good thought, and that's why I asked them specifically, how often do these things get, does this one specifically, because they have a few in the house, how often does this one get tripped and there's nothing there, you know?
Mhm.
And they said it doesn't go off unless there's somebody in the room, basically.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned them, you could have, because these I'm not sure about Ring specifically, but a lot of these types of cameras have IR sensors. And as we've kind of talked about before, as someone who has like a professional infrared camera, I know a decent amount about how IR tends to work with these kind of pieces of equipment. You can have barometric pressure changes. You can have dust, like if the AC or heater kicks on and off, that can be enough to trip these things sometimes. Like you mentioned, even if a heavy truck goes by outside, it can trigger them. If because there is a garage door on the other side of where this camera is, so if you open the garage door, that vibration might trigger it.
Right.
That's kind of what I was thinking whenever I asked them the question about, how often does this trip and there's nothing there. Because if this was happening all the time, then these aren't nearly as anomalous then, at least in my opinion. But the fact that that isn't happening very often, and there isn't any one home in the one, and in the other two, they're sleeping 2 floors up from where this is. So not impossible, but I think what you're talking about, probably covers a lot of the weird tripping functions that do happen with these cameras when people go, oh, well, I wonder if there's something paranormal here.
Right. I don't know what else to say. I feel like I want to hear what you have to say to kind of,
Yeah, so from the refraction standpoint, because that's the first thing that I thought, and when I first looked at it on my cell phone, that was one of the, like I said, the three things that I kind of looked at, and the thing you see on these videos, that makes me think it's not refraction. Like refraction is these artifacts that are basically when light hits lenses and the elements behind the initial kind of outer lens at weird angles, you get artifacts, and we call them refractions. So it's light indirectly hitting these lenses. When that happens, it is like of a consistent and a like it's going to be the same every time from the same angle. And it's also going to change depending on that angle. A lot of times with these Ring cameras, you see headlights refracting in weird ways from like outside on like a wall, and it looks like, an orb or something like that. This, I don't think, is that, because it changes shape in a almost like an oblong. Like if you look at like the first video, like it changes shape while it's going and it gets thinner at the two ends.
Well,
So I'm like, okay, is this just refraction? But when you look at it on like your computer and everything, it's changing shape the whole time in an inconsistent manner, which
well,
makes
let
me
me
think that it's
throw this
not.
out there
Yes. Yeah.
because I thought, especially hearing the wall, I was
Hmm.
thinking the windows and especially the glass block.
Yes.
And two things I'll say is that even though they're coming from different directions sometimes,
Hmm.
they do kind of seem to follow the same general
right.
path.
Yeah.
And glass
It's
block, as you know, is
wavy.
wavy, and
Hmm.
that can affect the shape. But it would
Yeah.
make sense it would be following the same path. I don't know what the street is like in front.
So yeah, so that's a great point, Nick, and especially the glass block. As anyone who lives in a Rust Belt city knows, like glass block is, pretty prevalent in basements around here,
Yes.
um, and it doesn't refract light the same way that regular pane windows do.
And of course, there's several different versions of glass block as well.
Yes, absolutely. That was one of the things I was thinking of, because there is that facing the other side of this camera. Now, out this door is their kind of patio, backyard, and they're on a hill. So the thing is, hundreds of yards before you get to another level street, way
Okay.
on the other side. So that's why I don't think that and even then, that street is parallel. So someone would have to be facing like perpendicular on a street 300 yards away in
Or
their
could they be
car.
turning?
Or they could be turning. Yeah. Like, so, yeah. So it's not impossible that that's part of it. But I think that if it's light coming from that far away, like if it's like a driveway,
Yeah,
300 yards across the hillside, um, one, I think that it would be happening more often,
agreed.
and
Right.
it doesn't explain the daylight one
Yeah,
like
I
it
agree
does the
with that.
nightlight ones. So I think that's an important consideration though, is that maybe it's just a really far away light source and it's getting refracted in very strange ways because of that glass block. And if we only had the nighttime ones, that may be where I would probably land too. But the daylight one makes that a little bit weirder.
And the daylight one is also different in the way that it moves and stays still on the
For a
camera.
short period of time and then moves again. Yeah.
Well, and I think I said or while we were watching it is that maybe moisture because it seems like maybe it's a little particular moisture that is clinging to the lens until it fully evaporates. You don't think so?
It's
That can,
organic.
Well, I
yeah.
mean, it appears big.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I think that if it was going like north to south on the camera, and I mean water does if you like spritz a camera with like a Mr. bottle or something, you will see like water pulling in weird ways. Like
Right,
you
because
can't have water that
nothing
goes
clings.
up because of like how water tension likes to work. I think that's a good point, Nick. But because
True.
this moves side to side, it's a little weirder because of that in my point of view. One of the other things I thought of that I think you guys mentioned earlier, that we see a lot in these types of cameras is insects. And I don't mean insects like flying around. I mean insects that are like over the lens. If you get a stink bug or a spider or a centipede or something, or just even like small aphids,
Centipede.
one,
What
yeah,
sort of ring doorbell is this?
I'm talking like the well, I guess like the
Basement
silverfish.
bug. No, a
Yeah.
silverfish is very small.
Yeah,
You're talking centipede. You're
Am I
correct.
talking,
like a
am I talking
thousand bucks.
centipede?
Yes, centipedes are those big hairy looking things you see in
Yeah.
basements.
Yeah, which is funny because if you ever see them under like an electron microscope, they look just like grasshoppers, which makes them less intimidating. If you think like, oh, it's just a grasshopper.
I saw a representation once that said if you don't have those in your basement, you would be up to your knees in regular bugs.
Like aphids and all kinds of other stuff.
And
Yeah,
yeah, any
probably.
kind of bug other than them.
Yeah,
After how
probably.
long?
Like a
Right.
year.
I would sweep before it got
That's what
that
surprised
bad.
me. But no, yeah, no, they are beneficial insects, that's for sure.
Hmm.
But what happens a lot with these cameras is if a bug crawls across the screen or across the lens, it looks really weird because the camera obviously can't focus on that bug, so it just looks like a transparent blob because of how lenses work and how that gets magnified and focused and everything. Normally, when you see that, though, it's either a spider in a spider web, and it's really like jerky and like is like bouncing and like moving really quick because the spider's moving.
And
Um,
the web suspending it and it's like moving
right,
in the air and stuff.
right, yeah, it's moving around a lot. And again, if that's what tripped it in the first place, it would be there a while and would be happening over and over again. And if it's a bug that was just crawling across, you would expect it to have a consistent like size and shape that would be that would and also the movement would match like the movement of the object in the video. And if you look up like on YouTube or whatever and look at like bugs on ring cameras, paranormal or something like that,
Oh, that's
you'll
one of our favorite things to
well,
look
yeah,
up. Bugs on cameras.
yeah, exactly. But there are lots of examples out there of like known like oh yeah, this was a whatever crawling across a
Yes.
camera. Um, it looks very different than these. The motion is different, the sizing is different, and the uh, like how it shows up on the lens is different.
I'm going to take a travel down memory lane real quick
Hmm.
for two reasons. One, because of this. Do you remember when we did security years ago?
Mm-hmm.
There was a parking lot camera. And
Hmm.
you could scroll through a few different cameras, but there was also a joystick.
Oh,
So you
nice.
could like turn the camera around and you could turn the joystick and it
Yeah.
would zoom in and out.
Okay. Yeah.
And the image was garbage, especially in low light. It's like these
Yeah.
visuals are pretty
Well,
impressive.
it was like 2002 Two.
It's a long time ago.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it was 2005 we were working there,
Right.
so the camera was probably from a few years prior, but
Right.
I loved playing with that camera.
Oh, yeah, that never gets old. That doesn't
I
surprise
thought you
me.
were going to talk about the window well or something, the door
Oh,
well that had millions of mayflies in it.
well, there was that, but
Well,
no,
that, yeah.
one time when I was scrolling through the camera, there was a giant like garden spider
Oh
on the
yeah,
one
on it,
camera,
right.
and we watched her for like a few
Well,
weeks.
and again, you weren't like, oh, a ghost.
No,
You know?
no.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so
It
uh
was spooky looking because I looked and I'm like, that's a spider, already spooky enough, but
right.
like it's, from the
Huge.
movie Them, yeah.
Right. Right.
So can we circle back to Nick's comment about moisture?
Yes, let's do that. Yes, absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
when you say that, I don't imagine droplets on the lens. I'm thinking you're thinking more like a mist, like a cloud.
No, I'm thinking more like, sometimes when different HVAC systems they can
Correct.
throw off moisture, or
So
if
Yeah.
you're
there's a
like a puff.
humidifier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if it were like, say, a humidifier,
Yeah, then it would be a consistent stream.
but you've ever seen
Right.
like the humidifiers that people connect to if they have forced air? Like I remember
Yeah.
the old shop had one,
Mm-hmm.
and I could just imagine like one I droplet, but
Right. No, and I think that probably, again, I don't necessarily think that's what's happening here, but I think that can happen in lots of other instances because like moisture changes or like a sudden influx of wet air could absolutely trigger the IR sensors on these things.
was there
Um,
somewhere else you were going with there though?
No, I just wanted to make certain that we talked about the fact that it was it's fuzzy almost.
mhm.
So it's like as you would think of fog or a cloud
Right. Right.
rather than actual droplets.
Yeah.
Right. It
I
doesn't,
didn't
yeah,
mean
it's,
like a droplet. For
yeah.
sure.
Right.
What I have seen people do to fake anomalies on cameras is you do put water on the lens and then use like a hair dryer to like blow it around because that way it's moving like against, gravity kind of thing. So like there are people who have like experimented with that to see what it looks like, and you can get some weird looking things. But again, because of how this changes shape and everything, it doesn't look like that. It just straight up doesn't. And again, it's one of those things where I think that with videos like this, the reason it's interesting is if you had these cameras running 24/7, yeah, every once in a while you're going to see some weird things on there. But if that happens in tandem with the very, very few times that it gets triggered when no one's around, then that is something that is now maybe a little bit more anomalous because you have a little bit of kind of just correlating unusual events, we'll say, if that kind of makes sense.
Well, you would certainly encounter more events that you wouldn't be able to quickly explain away.
Right. Yeah. With it not tripping very often, we can say, okay, these don't trip all the time for no reason.
Right.
And we don't have also another set of like false positives in a short period of time. Like if there was, like you mentioned with like the HVAC systems and everything, Nick, if yeah, every time your furnace kicks on, your ring camera goes off in your basement, probably something to do with that, I
Right.
would
Yeah.
think.
What about this?
Yeah.
What if is that a laundry area that we're looking at by the um
Yeah, over on the
by the
right.
window?
Correct. Yeah, on the other side of the
So
furnace. Yeah.
obviously if somebody is doing the laundry that's going to be tripped while they're down there, does this ever happen?
No, they've never had anything. They
So
haven't
not,
had this
I'm just
trip.
saying that it doesn't trip randomly, but does it there's no weird anomalies in other videos?
I would assume as soon as
Correct.
they saw that somebody was down in the basement doing laundry, they would probably stop watching, unless they slipped and fell, so they might not
Or
see
something like that. Yeah.
dust.
I don't know.
But again, like the timing of these is
Yeah,
strange
that's
too. And the
too,
fact
yeah.
that it's not like the fact that the one is during the day makes me feel like the refraction thing is
Well,
even like because that like
The
you said,
other thing with refraction is if you're talking about it coming in that glass block window, how is
mhm.
it going to get behind the stairs?
Right, exactly.
onto the angle.
The angles don't
Well, that could
really
be an
match up.
illusion, couldn't it?
Yeah, I guess if it's
Because it's
bouncing off
coming
the
from
camera and then
the stairs are from when you're looking at the video, and I hope you do. From your perspective, the stairs are on the left. The glass block window is more to the right. So if it's coming in at an angle, it could make that.
But can it do that angle, but also go behind the hot water tank on the far right? Like does that angle
there's
exist?
No window
Maybe it does.
There's no window on the ring side of the on that wall.
Correct. And that's a good point, Em, that like again you need to like whenever you're trying to like again we say we're trying to debunk, we're trying to explain it. Like whenever they first sent it to me, they're like, hey, this is weird because we can't figure out why this is here. So you need to understand the layout of a room to even start wrapping your head around it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm still leaning on it's dust, but the things that's weird about it is I would expect to see a little more. I think especially because it's a laundry area, I think if there's a dryer running, it's not, sometimes lint will get free.
Right. Yeah.
In a circumstance. Things that I find weird are, okay, if they're at mass, they may have thrown a load in the dryer before they left and maybe, on whatever.
Yeah, and we don't have sound, right?
We don't
Correct. We don't have sound. Yep.
But the 2 a.m. one, because even the longest dryer setting, I would assume they didn't put it in at like 1 a.m.
Yeah, delicate low heat.
That's true.
No, and that's so it's just it's weird. That's why whenever they first sent it to me, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be able to figure this out relatively quickly, and I was like, this is like I went through all the check boxes, and I'm like, no, this is like legitimately weird. Again, not saying this is 100% paranormal, but it is. That's why I thought it was interesting to show with you guys, because it's a great example of like you can go through all those. Dust, lens flares, moisture, bugs. You go through all those things, and you're like, none of those satisfy all of them. I
think that there's a guy using a flashlight behind the camera.
Because that's what
Em did.
Em said, I'm going to debunk this.
Yeah.
And I didn't tell her it was from your aunt until after she...
Yeah. I felt really bad.
No.
You can't call her a liar.
Right. Well, no, and again, and to be 100% transparent, like they were very open to be like, hey, if you can figure out what this is, like we want to know that too, kind of thing, because like they're trying to be skeptical. They're not trying to be like
they're testing you. They're like, okay, Brendan, you think you know it.
Oh yeah. Oh, and my family and friends do that just like they do to Nick and you probably. So yeah, I mean that's not uncommon.
I'll say this: I still think it's dust. As far as the shape changing, I think that's an illusion from
the wide angle,
or something like that,
and everything. Would you like to see the results of?
I would love. There is literally nothing in this world I would like more than to see Emily debunking a video. So let me.
Can I preface?
Please.
Just let's keep in mind that my light was the first thing I could find, and it's a very old flashlight.
Well, so it's a spooky flashlight, is what you're saying.
That's right. It's old tech, as Em says. All right. You see that all right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, let me blow it up on my end. And we're not going to share this one online. We'll describe to you what we're seeing.
Yeah. Okay. So right now, this is from our front porch, which we should, but that's where our Ring doorbell is. So Em's going to use a flashlight. She's going to shine it. When it's on the concrete,
it's not very convincing.
But when she hits the grass,
or it's a different texture.
Yeah.
And it's more diffused.
Right. It's bizarre.
Here we go.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see it. Yeah.
Now, in a moment, I'm going to make it a lower light situation. So there's still color here.
Right. But it's like sepia.
And this is the same
exact video.
Now look at it on the grass. That looks to me very similar.
Yeah, and see how the light changes shape while it goes down the little dip towards the...
Because the beam is elongating a bit as it's covering more of the ground, because the angle, yeah.
Yeah, and I have a flashlight that I wished I could find quick enough, but it's like a thing that you can like zoom the beam really tight.
Right, you could like, right, yeah.
So especially your relatives have somebody casing their house.
I thought maybe it would be somebody shining a flashlight even in the
Oh,
daylight
totally.
into that window.
Right.
We didn't even know there was a daylight video before we
Right.
came.
Yeah. In your defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I will say, like, again, I think that your idea to shine the light from the back, and were you going through like a glass front door or
Well, I was
anything?
just standing
Okay.
as like just
You were up
behind.
against the camera practically.
Yeah, I was just standing in the door frame.
Yeah, like so you're like so here's the camera, here's you basically shining the light. Yeah. No, it looks, I mean, it's funny because it doesn't look terribly dissimilar. Like again, I don't think it looks the same, but it looks pretty darn close, in a lot
Especially
of
when you
ways.
take away a lot of the color again to make it like that nighttime camera shot.
Yeah.
Because in the video, the light from the glass is a yellow amber light. So
Right.
there's some color, but it's pretty
Right.
washed
But it's
out.
pretty washed out, yeah.
So that's what I tried to get
Mhm.
kind of that same vibe by
Right.
editing.
Right.
That's all I edited of the video.
Right, right.
Well,
And I think
we also did cut me out of the beginning, activating the video.
and right, exactly, exactly. No, which makes sense. So you're like, oh, if this is a shorter video, then maybe that's why. And again, I don't know if their camera being an indoor ring, if it's if it's different than a Ring doorbell. I'm not sure if those are how those operate. But yeah, no, it's and again, the ones that they have, like the movement is really smooth. But again, if you're trying to be really smooth about it, maybe you could fake that in that way. Again, not saying I think they did, but again, I think that the video that you took, especially if it was like at night and you played around with like how the beam was hitting different things, like who knows, like this one is different because again, I don't think it looks like a light illuminating on like the side of the furnace or anything, because it doesn't change like when it hits the stairs.
Well, we were
like
looking when we were first watching it, and you were looking for ductwork or anything else as well.
Right, which is another thing that people think like, oh, ductwork's not reflective, but it is metallic, and like it might be reflective enough,
Right,
kind of thing.
Right.
Oh yeah,
doesn't
support whatever's reflective.
Right. Yeah, anything that's glossy can be reflective. So yeah, no, I think it was a really interesting video, and again, this always gets me thinking, and I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts, like we said earlier, about like what is there videos out there that you have seen that have either like convinced you anything one way or the other, or are there videos that could convince you? Because like I think that, like we mentioned earlier, there's been so much video out there. I think that it hasn't necessarily, like the quality hasn't necessarily gone up with the quality in my mind.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is the cameras are so prevalent. We have automated cameras that are running all the time, or are set to be triggered all the time.
Right.
We have them in the woods, we have them in the front and the backs of our houses, we have them in our pockets and purses, and so many weird, like anytime anything happens these days, people pull out a camera. They start videoing every interaction. And I understand that's still a novel thing for us, but I don't know. Obviously, I don't know if quantity of videos has gone up of paranormal things, but I certainly don't think the quality has. And that's in the face of undeniable facts that just these are great quality videos from really cheap tech that is small and portable. So I think that's it. It's not that I haven't seen videos that haven't made
you wonder.
I'm not sure. That's hard to explain. But I've also seen ones like I was trying to find Joe Nickel, who wrote for Skeptical Inquirer. There was a really terrible video someone was trying to pass off as a haunted gas station. They were saying, "Oh my gosh, look!" And it was this weird figure moving about, but it was just like an action figure behind the camera. And there was like a glass in front of the camera, so it was getting like a reflection. And Joe Nickel recreated that. I couldn't find that clip. But what are your thoughts, Em?
You can see that an example right here.
Oh yeah, we're looking at our window,
and there's a reflection right in it, just the same.
Right.
The other thing is that with all of this technology that has to do with videos is also directly connected to your computer, where anybody can edit anything at any moment.
Right.
Right.
And
So even the like clumsy spirit photography of the late 19th, early 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
right, was harder to achieve. Now,
Right.
just any old Joe really could achieve
Well,
that.
right. And like there's I
Even
can't
like
remember what
nothing.
I can't remember what the term is. So if someone knows this, please write in. But whenever I was for my minor in college in film, they talked about a theory or a concept that's like you can't imagine computer generated graphics that are better than what you've already seen, you know?
Hmm.
And that like that bar consistently moves as it gets better. But you can't like imagine what the next like what better graphics look like until you see those better graphics. And there's also a lot of theories in how digital rendering works to make stuff either because you know how you see some stuff from like the past and you think, oh, that looks awful, or you see and go, oh, that actually doesn't look too bad from like a computer generated graphic standpoint. That's because they follow different kind of like rendering principles. But so much of that technology now is so cheap, and when you pair that with poor quality video, it's very unconvincing to a lot of people because again like the quality overall then doesn't go up. I mean, when we were talking the other week, Nick, about one of my favorite shows, which is Monster Quest, and how we're going to do an episode on that series sometimes. You think of some of those old videos from like the late 90s, early 2000s, whenever digital cameras were first starting to be prevalent,
I don't
and
like that
people
you refer to that as old, but go
I
on.
know, right? It's awful, yeah. But but like with Bigfoot, people talk about the term blob squatch because it's just like it's just a blob. Like it's not a
What was the Mitch Hedberg line? Like, we're just looking out for a real blurry
it's
animal
a
out.
real blurry exactly, yeah. And okay, so as we have 30 years better, exponentially better technology, the videos actually and photos actually really aren't a whole lot better as far as convincing people because either the quality sucks still for a bunch of reasons,
Yes.
or you could be like, okay, well that's AI, or it's or
Yeah.
again or practical effects that are just as unconvincing. So I think between the prevalence of AI, the fact that it's that the when I say AI, I mean AI assisted computer generated graphics. Between that and how many cameras are out there, and also I think a lot of it is how people use the cameras. One of the things that comes up a lot when talking about video evidence is people who do ghost investigations or people who are cryptid hunters using videos. And where I think, because we've spent a lot of time, I think, like harping on how bad video stuff is with convincing people. I think where video evidence can still be really important and where the prevalence of the quality, like you see in these Ring cameras, is important, is when you have corroborating and correlating types of evidence. So a anomalous event that you experience is, just subjective. If you experience it and you have video, okay, that's one more angle or one more objective method of capturing that instance. Then if you also have decent audio, and if you have any of like the ghost hunting tools that people use, like temperature gauges or REM pods or EMF, detectors. Each one of those individual things might not be terribly convincing, but if you have something that happens and you have a bunch of those things you can now kind of like stack up together, now you can kind of start to tell a little bit more of a convincing story. And that's where I think video does still have a big part.
I obviously agree that video has a big part in evidence because even though obviously video has to be proven, but it's a form of evidence.
Yes.
One of the things your statement just made me think of, like all these ghost shows and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
is they capture an EVP. Okay. They had cameras in the room. They didn't get anything on the camera and the EVP at the same time. They have those weird things that make the stick figures now. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's newer.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Which
never
is
get all of like they never have an event where they capture all of these things at
Mm.
once with all this different tech. They have all this tech in an area, and only one of them
right.
go off at a time.
And I think that like so to play devil's advocate on that, I'd say there's two theories we might be kind of crossing over right there. So like let's just take auditory phenomena. Let's say you have someone who has like a high sensitivity audio recorder that's sitting on a table and they're trying to talk to a ghost or something like that.
Let's say
that's happening. Let's say you're trying to ask a spirit questions, but you also have a video camera that you're taping the whole session with that also has audio running, like you kind of mentioned.
Which all the shows
they do
when they do EVP sessions.
Right. So if you have and this is like me again putting my glasses on and being like, well, actually, if you have a disembodied voice, that is audio that is existing in space, like it's in the room. That is something that you're right, Nick. If that's happening in the room, then in theory you would hear it, you would capture it on both forms of media that you're recording on. That would be corroborating evidence and would be relatively convincing.
And as you have pointed out, you should be able to hear it because some of these EVPs that you've been able to analyze, you say, no, this definitely falls well within the range of not only human voice, but also human hearing.
Right, exactly. And now there are other forms of EVPs that are just kind of straight electronic voice phenomena, which is where you do not hear an audible voice, but it does show up on recording devices. Now, when that happens, it kind of, in my mind, falls into two categories, and I'm happy to argue with people over this because I think people are going to have opinions on it. When people say that it shows up on the audio device because it is outside the human range of speech, that is almost never the case, because if it was in fact out of the realm of human speech, you wouldn't be able to hear it likely either. If it is just sitting at 15 hertz, you can't hear that. I'm sorry. If it is at 20,
an oscilloscope to hear.
Right, exactly. So like you didn't hear it anyway, man. Or there is some kind of entity that is responding to your questions and purposely implanting somehow that response on that particular device. So when that happens, that's honestly kind of more, I want to say more paranormal, but that's even further out of the realm of what we understand, because that is a spirit imprinting something specifically on like audio tape. So it was never in the room to respond. It's just showing up on that tape, which does get talked about in evidence sometimes. I think there's a few things that could be happening right there. But again, that's why if you do have those multiple points of inspection in that event, now you can, like, now it's a lot more interesting and there's something to chew on there.
Sure thing.
Chew on it. Why don't you?
Chew on it.
So I am curious to see what other people think upon seeing this.
Yeah.
So you said the videos will be up on Instagram. If you go listen to us on YouTube, I will just embed the video. I'll just have it running, the 3 different clips running the whole time. If people want to let us know what they think it could be, if you know what, I'm going to anticipate a question real quick. Brendan, how old abouts is the house, and have they had any spooky things happen in their other ones?
Right. So
how long have they been there?
They've been there, I'd say at least 15, 20 years. It's been a while. It's not recent. They've been in the house for quite some time. They have had a few other little spooky things happen, but only like 3 or 4 little instances. The only thing that they ever had happen in that basement necessarily, which is where all these 3 are taking place, my uncle was touched on the shoulder, he thinks, out back, like where the camera is kind of pointing towards while he was out there splitting wood. And my aunt said that her and my uncle thought they could smell like cat smell down there shortly after they moved in, when the previous owner,
weird.
Yeah, which in the previous owner didn't have a cat. So like she said that like that was a little strange, but that only happened a few times and it didn't happen afterwards. But like we've mentioned before, smells can kind of come and go in places,
right?
Without a lot of.
On here recently, I talked about the first house we bought, and we had to fill like 3 dumpsters when we were cleaning it out.
Yeah.
And every month after that, we had to wear respirators to clean out the basement, and the wood steps, when it would rain, you would get like the faint memory of how bad it smelled.
Well, on that note, though, in cleaning everything out, we had a very strong strawberry smell as well. And I thought, this is bizarre.
Yeah.
Only to find out that the garbage bags that I was using were scented.
Strawberry scented,
Which
yeah.
I think explains a lot of paranormal situations.
well, no, but it does.
Contractor bags would be scented.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah. No, I
would never think of that.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that. And also, I've talked about this before, and I would love to find a expert on this. But like, I think, because this happens to me, not often, but enough times, where I will think I will smell something that certainly isn't there. And once your brain, I think it's because once your brain kind of decides, oh, this is what this smell is, it is very hard to convince yourself that it's like not the case. You know?
I agree with that.
That reminds me of one time when I was hearing bacon. Well, I smelled bacon.
Yeah.
Hearing bacon cooking. And I still thought that it was just pouring down rain outside.
Yeah, because you're just waking up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's when you eat bacon.
Right, that's true. It's as is tradition, you know. No, but you're right, but once, and I think it works for audio too. Once your brain, well, I had a really weird thing happen during, no, you know what? We'll save that for another day. That'll be another fun conversation. Yeah.
We tried Ollipops recently, which
what are those?
That are like 30% of your fiber intake, which like I'm gonna sign me up. They only have like a few grams of sugar, but you got in your mind that you tasted what a stevia. And then
yeah, which has a very particular taste to it. Yeah.
Relatively good. I was like, it could have been like diet pop.
Yeah.
But then found out there was stevia in it, and I was like, oh yeah,
that's all I can taste.
That's all you can taste. It, yeah. No, and I think that
I think that's like the smell thing too, though.
Right. No, I think our brains, once we decide we hear something, it's very hard to convince ourselves otherwise, or see something, or you know. And I think
taste so connected.
Right. And I think that like that's why these Ring doorbell type things I think are so interesting, because like I've always said that there has to be an experiential element to a lot of hauntings or paranormal experiences. Like I don't think that there are haunted houses in the woods with ghosts roaming around them necessarily, with no one in there to see them. But now that we have these Ring cameras, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, let's find a haunted house in the woods and set up a camera.
A Ring camera.
We'll just
Ring camera. If you out there have a haunted house that we can put a Ring camera in and just
in the woods.
In the woods, has to be in the woods. Please let us know. We have some theories that we want to test.
And how can people let us know?
You can find us on Instagram or YouTube at the Ghost Furnace Podcast, or you can send us an email at theghostfurnacepodcast@gmail.com.